What is up, my beautiful people? Welcome back to episode 12 of the Bling and Branding Podcast, where we come to be entertained, educated, and elevated. This episode, I felt extremely educated, and I hope you do too. I sat down with my guest, Kirstin Carey, who has a program that takes the holistic approach to health by addressing physical, emotional, and genetic factors. She is an author and even has a background in marketing and public speaking. Just a super well-rounded human. And we're going to chop it up today. We're going to learn a lot and we're going to have a great time. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. See you on the flip side.
Hi, I'm Kirstin Carey. Excited to be here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Heck yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is actually my first time seeing Kirstin face to face. My amazing partner connected us, and I've heard so many amazing things about her and her business and her beautiful mind. So I'm so excited to get down to this today. So Kirstin, how about we start off? You just tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I literally just turned 50 a couple days ago, so I've crossed into the woohoo. Yes, I'm excited to take on this decade. It definitely doesn't feel the way I thought 50 was supposed to feel. I'm feeling great. So good. But I'm a natural health practitioner. I kind of got dragged into being a natural health practitioner. I was a marketing and sales consultant for many years and loved all of it, but wasn't feeling great and was getting sicker and wasn't sure why. And I was flying all over the country speaking at events and conferences. And I found out that I had celiac disease. And then later I found out I had Hashimoto's, which are autoimmune conditions. So because I'm an A-type personality who likes to get answers, I couldn't find them in conventional medicine. I couldn't find them actually in some of the non-conventional medicine. So I went back to school to become a natural health practitioner and find answers. So that's how I ended up where I am. But as you know, you have to understand marketing and sales to get anything across to people. Yes. So I still spend most of my time in the marketing and sales in my company.
I think that's actually such a good pathway to take, starting in something like in that wheelhouse, so that when you get to what you're really passionate about, you understand the principles of how to market your business. Because I feel like so many business owners don't understand the value of marketing and like what it actually does. So I think that's brilliant that you just happen to go that direction. I love that for you.
Yeah, I loved everything about marketing and sales. And I used to write their sales processes for very large companies. And I was brought in as the consultant around those things. But it's a shame. I know a lot of people who are really, really, really good at what they do. And they are absolutely terrible at the marketing and sales. And they leave their businesses. They leave their companies.
So I know you have a very colorful professional history, not just marketing and sales, which I want to get all into. I've only heard tidbits from Eric, but I think it's really important for our audience here that we paint the picture of all of the different things that you've got your hands on and experienced before leading up to where you are today. So let's just dive right in, shall we?
Let's. So let's see. I started my first company in my dorm room in college.
Love that.
And the guy that I was dating in college, who I later married and then later divorced, we owned a bunch of companies together. We started a bunch of companies together. And that's actually how I ended up doing more marketing consulting, because we had real estate investing. We owned a legal courier service. So if you've ever been served, it would be one of those companies
been divorced,
that does
so
that.
I know.
So you feel it. Yeah, you know what it's like to get served. And we had a screen printing company, embroidery, all of those things. So I've been there, done that with a lot of different industries. Wow. I was a professional speaker for a long time within the companies that I had, but I saw everything really from a marketing and sales standpoint. So what ended up happening, because we owned all these different companies, I started having people who were friends or who knew me from other, networking programs and things like that, ask me, well, can you help me do the marketing? Can you help me figure out how you're getting these companies to make money? So that's how I ended up moving along and starting my own marketing consulting company. And I was hired by really big companies. I was working for Verizon and UPS and Aramark and so and they would bring me in to work with their marketing and sales departments, but they often would bring me in to work with their high level execs to have them more effective in front of an audience. Okay. So when you really look at marketing and sales, it's how you're presenting yourself. It's how you're presenting. So they even saw it as internal marketing to people, in the company. So
besides that, what was kind of like your bread and butter for your consultancy business? Like, was that print? Was that commercial? Was that social? What did that look like for you?
At the time, because now, again, I'm 50. This was before social media, right? So this is before we had really any of those things. So a lot of it was print. A lot of it was even just understanding how to make the sales pitch, like how once you got in front of the client or the customer. So I helped them create a lot of their sales pitches or how they worked with the customer. Like one of the organizations I worked with was a catering organization, and they needed to be able to upsell people who were coming in to design weddings and have their corporate events at their facilities. So how do you upsell somebody? How do you understand what they really want? And in the end, it's all really psychology.
Yep.
Right. It's So the interesting piece is what I do now when I work with our clients to help them reverse autoimmune conditions, to reverse digestive disorders, thyroid issues, is so much of it is actually still psychological. It's psychology. It's the understanding of why my body doesn't feel safe, why my body is taking on this illness, this problem. So to me, if we simplified the world, it all comes back to what we think, what we feel, how we believe we are safe or not safe in the environment in which we live.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. That's actually, I think, the perfect kind of segue into my next question, which is, what do you think are kind of some of the issues with the current healthcare system today and how we deal with chronic or terminal illness? What does your program do that differs from that?
Yeah, so this is a big one because I went through a lot of conventional medicine when I was suffering at the worst. And, conventional medicine is designed as emergency medicine, right? So if something is so far gone or your body is really in trouble, there is a need sometimes for medication. There is a need sometimes for surgery. There is a need sometimes for what conventional medicine brings us, right? Unfortunately, too many people use conventional medicine in a way that doesn't help them because conventional medicine doesn't work with the way the body was designed. Right? It tries to circumvent the way the body is functioning. So the way that we come at and approach people is more from how is your body already designed to work? Let's help enhance that. Let's help you utilize what your body already actually knows how to do. But when you start looking at if we have a symptom, if we have a disease, if we have a challenge, it's the body trying to tell us something is out of alignment, something is out of balance, something is inflamed, and we are doing something that is causing it to feel like it can't get up over on what the issue is and naturally do what it was designed to do. So when Anthony and I, my partner in crime and business and all things, when he and I work with our clients, we work with them through the nutrition side, but we also work with them through science and epigenetics and physiology. And we also work with them through what we call the soul work, but really it's the emotional body. Yeah. Because all three of those things, nutrition, science, and soul, they work together in a way that if you think they're separate components, you won't be able to get into the flow of the healing. So conventional medicine takes psychology and separates it and says, oh, here's the mind doctor. And then they take the body and divide it up into a bunch of little pieces and say, well, here's your cardiologist and here's your endocrinologist and here's your specialist over here.
That's so true.
Whatever else is. And we're separated, right? We're whole beings. And you can't do something psychologically and not have a physical impact. You can't do something physically and not have a mental impact.
Absolutely.
All of those things are connected.
Yeah.
So that's where I think conventional medicine gets it really horribly wrong, is that they see us as separate components that don't work cohesively together. Where we come at it from you're a whole person. If you have an impact on one thing, it's going to impact all of the things. Let's do that with purpose and intention.
I've actually seen this firsthand. My dad, who has been suffering from prostate cancer for the better part of a decade and has heart issues and all kinds of other issues, but all of his doctors are separate. Like he has his cardiologist, he has his urologist, and they when he's having these issues, they're not communicating. And it's like, well, I don't know what's wrong with him. Like, is he having a kidney issue? Is this having to do with his pacemaker?
Right.
Like, what's happening? And it's like, well, shit, you all need to get together in a room and figure it out. But
they aren't trained that way.
No, they're not. They're not. And they're so focused on the one issue. But I think what makes your program even more packs a bigger punch is because you were your own case study. You started this journey, right? Because of your own healing experience, because you needed to take your health into your own hands. And so I think that's a really, really powerful statement, to a testament of what it is that your program offers and what you and your partner have built.
Yeah, it's what you're saying is where most people get really frustrated with conventional and sometimes even natural medicine, is that they see you as a piece. We're not cars, right? We're not pieces of a car. Like, you can't just take out one piece and replace it and call it a day. That's not how we work naturally. So when you can work with the body, and I'm not saying conventional medicine is unnecessary, because if I get into a car accident, my arm is ripped off, I am not throwing some herbs on my arm and hoping for the best, right? So I'm going to a hospital. Like, I'm looking for a doctor to help me there. Yeah. But when it comes to what our bodies already naturally know how to do, we just lost touch with that.
Yeah.
And we don't trust our systems and we don't trust our bodies the way that we really need to in order to find that healing. And that's why I think we see clients having such amazing, miraculous transformations. And a lot of times a really short period of time, is because they start to understand the bigger picture, is that all of those pieces impact the others. So you can start pulling certain threads and having impact over the entire process all at once. You don't have to just go to one, like your heart isn't separate from your bladder, and your bladder isn't separate from your thought process.
Yeah,
and
they all talk to each other.
Exactly. And to me, that's such a simple concept that it makes me frustrated when I don't see that in conventional medicine. And we have so many people coming out of conventional medicine who come to us and say, our doctors are shrugging their shoulders. They're out of medication. They don't know what else to do. They don't know why this is happening. And they're just, because conventional medicine is more
symptomatic,
sick
right?
Management. Yeah, it's sick care. It's sick management. This is healthcare, and healthcare, it's a joke to me that conventional medicine uses the term healthcare, because they're not looking for prevention. They're not really looking for healing.
Yeah. They're
looking how to manage the symptoms, how to manage the disease. And I'm like, how about we get rid of the disease?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so I've reversed the celiac disease. I've reversed Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune thyroid. And we see clients reversing out of their diseases and their symptoms all the time. It's not like a miraculous thing that happens once in a while. We see it constantly. Yeah. So when we get clients who come to us and say, well, my doctor says I'm a miracle because I reversed my thyroid issue. I'm like, you did the work. And oh my God, yes, but you're not a miracle. And the fact your doctor thinks you're a miracle is
a problem.
Surprisingly a huge problem, because if your doctor doesn't think what your goal is possible, it's not going to happen.
No.
Right? Like, you have to go to people who have seen it, know it's a possibility, and know how to get you there.
Yeah, not just live with this chronic disease your whole life. Oh my gosh.
Right.
So I'm super interested in the mental, emotional aspect that you talk about in your book, about unresolved trauma being a source for health issues that can ensue later on or during. Can you tell me in the audience more about kind of how that works?
Sure. So, okay. So from the time we're born to the time we turn 7, basically most of our thought process, most of what we're doing is trying to learn how to live within the community, in the tribe in which we were born into. What's appropriate, what's not, what keeps us safe. So if you're a kid who grows up in a situation where there's a lot of chaos, there's alcoholism, there's drug abuse, there's instability,
Yeah.
You will start to believe instability is how you're supposed to live, even though it's not actually helping you, but that becomes your normal.
Yeah.
So what happens is after the age of 7 is when you start to really lock in those beliefs of what keeps you safe. And in this scenario, chaos is what you're so used to, which is so normalized. We want that. We think that keeps us safe. From that point on, you start to actually look for more ways to stay in what you're familiar with. And in this case, it's chaos. It's instability. So as we get older, we think that that's normal. We think having chaos around us is normal, and we don't know how to get out of it because without it, we think we're unsafe. And that's an underlying psychological, subconscious thought process. It's not a conscious conversation.
No.
So as we get older, you start to see people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s who are constantly having chaos issues around them. And when things get calm, it's like they actually like attract or look for other situations which create chaos. So we actually look for those situations to bring us back to what we think is normal, safe environment, which of course it's not safe when we look at it intellectually. Well, we're not looking at it intellectually. So we'll have a lot of clients who will come to us and, like thyroid disorder, it's, the thyroid sits in the throat, right? If you really look at that energetically, you look at that emotionally, most people with thyroid disorder either feel like they've never been heard, they're not speaking their truth, they're not able to speak their voice, they were never felt like they were being heard or listened to or seen or acknowledged.
That's so interesting. Okay.
Right? So you start to see that. We start to teach our clients how to hold boundaries, how to speak for themselves, how to not create chaos in their lives. And everything starts calming down and they no longer need this chaos in their lives. And healing actually can happen because if you basically are in a state of inflammation or in a state of healing, you can't be in both simultaneously because your body only has so much energy.
Yeah.
So it's either going to put it to all of the issues and chaos and inflammation I'm dealing with to try to calm it down, or it can put that energy into healing. Well, of course, it's going to go after the chaos first, or it's going to go after the inflammatory response first. So most people are in a state of constant inflammation, a constant fight or flight, constant fear without realizing it because it's so normal. Once we calm that down with the client, they start to see where this fear is really coming from or where this inability to feel that they can hold boundaries or speak for themselves. And then they can actually change that energy that's been spending on that chaos all day long and move it over into a healing process. And it's amazing how fast that can happen when people understand what's going on, understand the underlying piece, and understand where that actual trauma occurred.
That is so interesting. Okay, so like a person with a thyroid issue comes to you, is that kind of the first thing that you assume? Like maybe there's some unresolved trauma, you feel like those kinds of issues ensue?
Yeah, always. I mean, there is no one, so cool. and I very rarely like to play black and white issues. Like it's always this way or not this way, but I'm going to say it for this one. Always.
Oh shit, really?
Case when somebody is dealing with some sort of autoimmune issue, if they're dealing with some sort of actually any symptom, there is some connection that's going on at an underlying level, emotionally, mentally, and physically. So never is it just an issue of what I'm eating or just an issue of how I'm working out or just an issue of what supplement I'm taking.
Yeah.
Or else we would all be fine.
Interesting. Yeah. I kind of have like a loose firsthand experience with something like this. I used to have panic attacks like kind of frequently.
Huge signal.
Yeah. I like it was like chronic. It was bad. And I didn't really know how to deal with it. I didn't know what was going on, but I kind of always had this, I was holding on to this grudge from my childhood where, I just thought I was the victim. And I flew home and I had this amazing conversation with my dad and we both cried and we bonded. And I don't think I've had a panic attack since I had that conversation where we just like let go. And I was like, I forgive you for holding you responsible for all of this, trauma I thought I had, but really I was just making all this stuff up in my head because I was a little teenage brat,
Yeah.
But I was definitely able to see that huge shift. Actually, with the help of Eric, I wouldn't have realized this if it weren't for Eric. And I feel like this was indirectly from teachings that you've taught him. So thank you.
You're welcome. We have a lot of conversations. We've known each other a long time. It's been a long time. 15 years, I think. Holy cow. Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, no, I'm, like I said before, I'm just so happy to be talking to you. You're exactly how he described you and more. Your presence is just incredible.
Hopefully that's good.
Yes, it's very good. It's very good.
When people start realizing that our perception of the world around us is exactly what is true for us. It may not be true for somebody else's perception, but if your perception is that you've been done wrong, that you're the victim, that your parents didn't love you, that it wasn't okay, or whatever the story is, we will continue to reinforce that identity of people are out to get us. It's not fair. The world is unkind. And we will keep finding evidence and proof to that.
We will.
So it's not just positive thinking, because that actually can make things worse. I had a client the other day say,
isn't good either. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you truly believe that you are not worthy, but you keep standing in the mirror every day saying, I am worthy, I am worthy, I am worthy, your little subconscious is going, you're a fucking liar. You're a liar. And then you reinforce that you're not worthy. So a lot of the positive self-help stuff is actually making people worse. So when we work with clients, we help them understand how to make that shift without reinforcing a fear or an identity crisis issue that's going on at the subconscious level.
Yeah, you can't just smear over a bunch of positive affirmations, right? You have to dig deep and figure out what the source of the issue is.
No. And you can't just do an ayahuasca ceremony and call it a day.
No.
And I've been there. I've done some psychedelics. I've done some of those things with journeys and things like that to help move through some blocks and challenges. But when we're doing it just to avoid or just to numb or and we don't see where we can make the shift in the brain or in the body, it's not going to happen long term. Like, people have a cool experience, but they're not able to sustain that long term. So you need a process and a plan that's consistent moving forward to undo some of these things that may have been in the psyche, honestly, actually since before birth, because we actually do get some of our traumas can be pushed in. So there's a concept called epigenetics. There's a science called epigenetics. Really hasn't been talked about until about the last 15 years.
Yeah. What does that mean?
But it essentially shows. So it's a good question. So genetics is genetics, right? The genetics that are moved in from our family. Epi means above. So it's what's influencing or what's above the genetic influence. So there's something that controls whether, so your father, you said, has a heart disease. Do you have siblings? You have siblings,
I have a younger brother.
Okay. So the two of you are predisposed to having a heart condition. That doesn't mean you end up with a heart condition. That means that you're predisposed to potentially having a heart condition. Now, why would potentially your brother end up with a heart condition and you wouldn't? It's because of epigenetics. There's something that's influencing that gene to express or, quote, turn on, or it's influencing it to stay turned off. What influences the gene to express is what's your environment. So, and that's internal and external. So what do you eat? What's the water you're drinking? What's the air quality around you? Who do you hang out with? Are they positive people or negative people? What are your thought processes all day? Do you believe you're going to end up with a heart condition, or you don't believe you're going to end up with a heart condition? All of those things influence whether that gene expresses in your body or expresses in your brother's body or neither of your bodies.
Okay.
That epigenetic response can actually pass on through up to 14 generations. So if someone in your back history, a grandparent, a great-grandparent, had major trauma and they had panic attacks, that expression of that influence of the expression of that gene can pass on to you through the DNA.
That's so crazy.
Panic attack scenario can pass on for up to 14 generations deep. So a lot of sometimes people say, oh, well, we have the family anxiety. That's a thing.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
Generational trauma, right?
Yes. And it passes on genetically, and it passes on through how we behave and how we handle our stressors. So it's not just how your genetics are being passed on, it's how your family is actually behaving around stress. How do they handle stressful situations? Do they bury their head in the sand? Do they ignore things? Do they also drink? Like, how do we handle it? So it's a combination of nurture and nature at that point.
Oh my gosh, this is such a great conversation. I'm loving this so much. I feel like I'm connecting dots.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it makes sense, right? Because you're just
It
like,
does.
oh. And the reason the body does that and passes those things on is because it's trying to keep you safe. So if there's, let's say, we'll go back to being cave people, if there's a watering hole that's unsafe to drink at because there's a lot of animals that are deadly that hang out that water hole, your genetic line will actually start to push through to the people after you to tell you that watering hole is dangerous, or those berries are dangerous to eat because it kills people.
Oh,
right. So it actually changes our genetic expression to teach us. Exactly.
Okay.
So, but now we're, terrified because we can't make rent. That fear continues to, around money, can push through to your people after you, your children, your friends, or not your children, your aunts, uncles, like all the people in the family
totally
start resonating in that genetic expression.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Oh my goodness.
Fun, right? This is what I consider fun.
This is great. I could talk about this all friggin' day. So like if a human with an autoimmune inflammatory disease hormone imbalance issue isn't responding to Western medicine and comes to you, the first thing we're doing is looking into their emotional mental backgrounds, or what's the first thing that we're doing when that type of patient comes to you?
Great question. We kind of come at it from all sides. So we know there's a physical piece, that we know there's an emotional piece. We know there's a genetic piece. So we come at it from all angles. So we go after a good back history of, what's going on in your family? What have you seen expressed in the family before? What are you eating? What does your working out look like? What does your sleep look like? How much water are you drinking? What's your bowel movements? Like we go through all of the stereotypical pieces there. We look at any medications that they're currently taking or have taken. Because a lot of people, if you've taken certain medications, it could still be impacting you years later. Yeah. And why your body isn't digesting properly, why you may be having issues with your skin, why your immune system actually could be shut down. There's several medications that people don't even realize have an impact on their immune system, like Prilosec. So the purple pill, the one that people take for acid reflux, actually shuts off your immune system and actually suppresses the immune system from functioning. I know. So a lot of people don't realize that some of the medications that they seem like, easy, simple medications, things that are over the counter, could be like literally having impact on whether they are healing or getting worse. From a
I'm
side
surprised
effect.
There's not a class action on that yet.
Well, people just they accept it. Yeah. That's a side effect. It's actually written into the thing, which is why it says don't take more than 12 days or 14 days in a row. And yeah, but nobody reads the information on that.
And the commercial, it's like,
exactly. And they're like, and it's going to do all these things. And you're like, okay, because you just want the acid reflux to stop. Yeah. But there are so many easy ways to stop acid reflux without taking medication. But oh my gosh, doctors aren't taught in nutrition. They're taught in medication. So that's the way that works. And then we also go after but what does your backstory look like? What did your family history look like? What are you dealing with right now? Are you happy with your life? Are you happy with your job? Where are your stressors that you know of? And then we start helping them peel apart where the stressors are that are so common in their everyday life. They don't even realize that they're stressors. Like if somebody tells me I can't meditate or do yoga because I'm too stressed, I can't sit still that long. I'm like, oh, yeah, you see, you're like pointing to yourself. Yeah, I see you. That's an indicator that there's something running underneath the surface telling you that you're in danger. So you're trying to flee the scene. Like if we can't sit still long enough, there's something saying I have to keep going. And that's an indicator that there's an underlying trauma running around the system that needs to be dissolved. So these are the things that we start looking at. So we look at the person again as a whole. And then we start helping them make shifts. And we don't go real extreme either. The only thing diet-wise that we do that's pretty black and white is we have yet to see anybody doing better when they're eating gluten or dairy. They're highly inflammatory. They're highly disruptive to the gut and digestive process. 80% of what was going on in our entire systems is going on in the gut. So we typically have clients remove gluten and dairy. But from there, it depends. We have some clients that do better as plant-based, some clients that do better when they're paleo, some clients that do better when they're eating just fish. So we find the right diet for the client, where they are in their healing process. And then we find the right process and modalities and tools to help them uncover old or really active traumas that they don't realize are traumas.
Yeah.
Because the thing with trauma is that most people look at big T traumas, like I was raped, I was attacked. They look at the obvious traumas. It's the little T traumas that pile up over time that really create most of the havoc for most people. So we help them identify them, and then we help them learn how to dissolve them and create new patterns so that healing can happen and continue over time.
Absolutely. So you said something during that explanation that I kind of want to circle back to. Not being able to sit still when you're meditating. I feel like there is a lot of discourse around ADHD and ADD now in our society, which I was diagnosed when I was like 17 or something. And the doctor said something horrible to me, like, you should have been here. You could have gone to Harvard, like something like that when I was diagnosed.
Way to make that worse.
Right? I feel like we have, as a society, accepted so many of these behaviors and associated it with ADHD or whatever. So like, I have just accepted that I'm a person that can't meditate, or I'm a person that can't keep things organized, or I'm a person that needs to be told something a million times. Like, I feel like that's just another kind of rhetoric of our society that we're like, well, this is how it is. And I feel like based on what you just kind of explained, these are just nuances that are attached to lived experiences that we just haven't touched on or resolved. And that just actually gives me so much hope, because I drive Eric crazy. So that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah, you're 100% correct about all of that. A lot of times we've just said, oh, well, that's normal. I'm like, it's common. It's not normal. Right? So we have to take those two words and separate them, because just because we see it with a lot of people a lot of the time doesn't mean it's normal or healthy or good. And for us to just accept, well, other people are ADHD, or that's just the common thing when I can't sit still. I'm not saying that it's not a challenge for some people and that's not how their brains work. What I'm saying is there's ways to help support that so that we aren't just running. And so if we haven't looked into, is there a way to find some of the underlying traumas that are keeping you in a state of feeling like you have to keep going? That's fight or flight. You have to flee the scene all the time. Then we haven't done right by the person. So again, but we default to medication so quickly in this country because we think a pill is going to fix it. Every single solitary pill comes with a side effect, an unintended consequence. And for some people, it may be worse than others, but then your body has to then figure out what to do with that issue, that side effect.
Absolutely.
We had a client recently, she had a skin issue and we were working through it, and she had a litany of, let's just say that, a litany of side effects or symptoms. So we were helping her work through them, but the skin issue was the one that was most frustrating to her. And typically the symptoms that's most frustrating to us means something, but her skin issue was, so she had seen a dermatologist, and the dermatologist said, oh, there's this new medication on the market. Let's use that. And I was like, she's like, what do you think? I'm like, I can't tell you what to do with that. But what I can tell you is that all medications come with side effects. She's like, well, the doctor said there were none. I'm like, go research it.
No, there are.
And either it hasn't been out on the market long enough for you to see it, or I said, but they all come with side effects. I said, but if you want to take it and you don't want to wait for this process to work, that's up to you. But there will be a side effect. Her skin started getting better within a couple of weeks. She's like, see, this is awesome. And so at week 4, every single hair on her body fell out.
What?
Every single one, like all of them. Eyebrows, eyelashes, pubic hair, hair on her head, all of them. Arm hair, all of it.
As a female, that is devastating.
Devastating. And so she came back. She says, what do I do to bear it back? I'm like, well, it's a side effect. Like, I can't promise you it's going to come back. And I don't know, because it's circumventing the way the body works. So it's forcing physiology. It's forcing the body to change in a way that it wasn't designed to do. I said, so you have to go back to your doctor and talk to her. Of course, the doctor said, I've never seen this happen. But then the doctor talked to other colleagues, and she's like, oh yeah, that's a pretty common side effect that people are seeing.
Oh my God.
So she stopped taking the medication, and the hair didn't come back, and it hasn't come back. And it's been like a year. All of her other symptoms, we were able to help her around. But she's like, what do I do about this? I'm like, that's you pushing science in a way on your body that it may not come back. right? You may have done damage in a way. And I'm not trying to scare people who are taking medication that they can't come back from things. Most things you can come back from, unless you cut things out of the body and it has to circumvent it. You change.
Yeah.
So surgeries can throw things off. But that's what I want people to start kind of considering, is that the side effect then creates another level of an environment within the system that you may not realize. So back to ADHD, my recommendation when we have clients who come to us with those as issues is let's start working on what we know helps lower inflammation. So even if it doesn't completely stop all the symptoms of ADHD, you'll be able to naturally, more effectively manage those symptoms if you lower the inflammatory response across the board. So that's where most people see their success when they're talking about this. And a lot of them they don't need the medications at all. Most of our clients, regardless of the medication, come off their medications when they're working with us.
Yeah.
They work with their doctor
have
officially.
never gone on. I mean, I went on the medication for a little bit when I was in high school, but I was like, this is crack. Like literally, this is prescribed meth. I can't do this.
Yeah.
So I just learned how to live with it.
And there are other things that can help.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's learning to live with. I was told the same thing. You have to learn to live with these symptoms. You have to learn to live with this disease. And I'm like, well, how about I learn to live without it? And most of the conventional doctors I talked to had never seen somebody heal from any of this stuff. So that's why I went natural medicine.
Yeah.
And even with some of those doctors, they hadn't seen it completely, or they'd only seen it when you were taking like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of supplements. And I didn't want to go that direction either.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying supplements are bad. We are fans. We think if you're taking hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month of supplements, something is still not being addressed.
Yeah, totally. So you and your partner built this company, right? From the ground up, essentially, Anthony. What is Anthony's part in the company? What is his role that he plays?
Good question. So he handles more of the science, physiology end of it. So I started the company, and then he went back to school and decided to become certified. He's a natural bodybuilder. I mean, the guy looks the part too, right?
Yeah.
Like he fits the part, he eats the part. But he comes in and he's more of the science end. So he's the one that's going to be running the labs and interpreting labs and going through all of that with you and telling the story of what the labs tell you. It's not the marker that you're looking at. It's the combination of the results from all of the markers that you're looking at. So it's not just one marker is high. It's one's high, one's low, and one has been presenting this way. The combination tells us a litany of information about what we can do, right? So he's more of that science end. He'll be more in the nutrition, physiology, the working out piece, all of that. Now, I'm also trained in nutrition as well, but he goes much deeper into that piece.
Yeah.
I've taken my side up to more of the trauma healing, the resilience piece on the emotional side. So he's more of the tangible stuff if that works, the meal planning and the nutrition and all the science and the labs. And I'm more of the intangible piece of it to complete the whole person approach.
That's a great partnership. And for our audience here, Anthony, he's a vegan, right?
He is 12 years. Actually, he went plant-based, and the bodybuilding thing, he got leaner. It works for him.
Built.
It didn't not work for me. He is that.
The man is that.
Built. He's a hottie. We will keep him. Yes, he's a hottie, and he's 55 now, so it does not look it. But he went vegan because he wanted something different. He built up with the stereotypical bodybuilder diet where it was a lot of the protein, animal protein and all the things. He went plant-based, but he does it right. I think it's very hard for most people to do plant-based in a healthy way because they lean really hard into the fake meats and the genetically modified,
the soy
yes, and all the. So he does it right, which is hard for a lot of people to do effectively. It's also hard, I think, for a lot of women, especially premenopausal women, to really do well on veganism or plant-based long term. Because there's a little bit of animal protein, at least for most of our clients who are premenopausal women. I'm not saying they can't do it, and we have clients that are doing it. I did terribly on plant-based. though I eat a ton of plants, but I still eat some animal protein. But the majority of people should be eating, most of their meals should be plants. And then some of us, we will throw in some chicken or beef or lamb or fish in smaller dosage. But we eat way too much animal protein in this country. We don't need the amount of protein that we eat in, especially this country. And we don't do it effectively with really clean meats. So that's where some of the problem comes from the animal protein for people.
I see that. I see that for sure. Well, I kind of want to shift gears here a little bit, Kirstin. Yeah. You are also an author, which is absolutely incredible. Congratulations on writing a book and having it published and all the things. Yeah, bring it over.
Yay. I'm like, here it is. I'm like, it's up there.
The butterfly transformational healing.
Yes. So, it was quite the project.
Yes, I'm sure. I would love to kind of talk about the creative process behind writing the book and how you decided to go on this journey.
Yes. So I actually wrote books for my marketing consulting company years and years and years ago when self-publishing had just started becoming a thing.
Oh, okay.
And one of my only jobs out of college as I worked for a publishing company. So I learned a lot about self-publishing in the year that I was there, and I was in the marketing and sales department, of course. So I understood books and publishing, and it's taken a very different turn now. We had some great experiences and we had some not great experiences with this book. We fired the publishing company that we were working with at the beginning. And then we ended up basically doing it on our own, which it was a much easier process. But I am a big fan of, if you really are an expert in something and you don't have a book on what it is that you do, that you're missing a piece, like you're missing a major piece of that.
Yeah.
From a sales perspective, from a just credibility perspective. And really, it's a challenge to you to really ask yourself, do I actually know what I'm talking about? Because when you have to put it down into a book form, it really puts you in a different place.
Absolutely.
We built the book off of, so we have a very specific model that we use with our clients. It's science, nutrition, and soul. And then each of those pieces is broken down into smaller pieces. So we broke the book down by that. So there were major sections of the book that were based on science, nutrition, and soul. And then the smaller chapters were based on the sub components of each of those. And it just made sense to me that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great marketing tool when you use it correctly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like I've always felt this way. You start to hone your craft even more when you're in a position where you either have to teach it or write it all down. And it makes you think about everything twice and go back to the foundation of it all. So I'm a big proponent of that as well, writing a book or teaching it. I haven't written a book yet, but I do love it when people ask me about marketing and social media and stuff, because I'm like, oh yeah, like I haven't thought about, the beginning principles in a while. It's good to kind of brush up on it. It makes me remember where it came from and like what I'm doing wrong and kind of just ground me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it takes you back to the basics too. I mean, with marketing and sales, when you look at social media and you look at how marketing works now, it's very different in many ways, but the principles are still the same.
Exactly.
Do you understand your market? Do you understand who you're trying to attract? Do you understand who's most attracted to what you have? And do they have the money to pay for what it is that you have as your service or your product?
Absolutely.
So, a lot of the books out here, they're trying to teach the tactics. I'm like, this is the principle. These are the overriding concepts. If you don't understand these pieces, those tactics aren't going to work for you. Right? Because they're just tactics.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're not put into a strategy, then you're just throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Right. And so if you don't understand your market, you don't understand who you're trying to attract and where they hang out and where how they want to be attracted. It doesn't matter if you've got the latest, greatest of all of the things. It's not going to get you where you want to go.
Absolutely. And I mean, as we touched on earlier, you have been in sales and marketing and seen the big shifts throughout the years. How has your branding and marketing strategies from a high level view kind of shifted as the years went on, as technologies were developed and pop culture shifted and all that kind of stuff?
Great question. I think we've had to get tighter about who we're really attracting, who our market really is, and really make sure we're appealing to that market, how they want to be appealed to, if that makes sense. Like my market is still very much, it's women 40 to 65. They're our most typical clients. We have clients that are younger and clients that are older, but that's our most, like, if you had to hit the bullseye, that's who we're looking at. But there are also women who are really looking to, they're not trying to get away from a symptom. They realize the symptom is just pulling them from who they really are and not letting them spend their energy and time doing what they want. So they're not victims. They're not people who want to stay stuck. They're women who are like, this is getting in my way. I need to learn and I need to teach myself and I need help getting there. And I need the support and the knowledge of somebody else who's already been there and done that to get there faster, easier, better. So on like we see them more on Facebook, Instagram. We don't see them on LinkedIn. We don't see them on some of these other pieces of social media. Doesn't mean they're not there, but for us, but if I had a much younger audience, Facebook is not where I would be.
No, yeah,
right. Like
course.
we had to. So a lot of
TikTok.
people. Oh yeah, I'd be all over. I mean, we're on TikTok, but that's not where my audience really comes from.
Totally.
Though here's some of the stuff we started to learn because we're in health. There's certain things we can't say on certain platforms. Like I can't use the word healing. I can't use the word cure, which I wouldn't anyway, but you can't use the word cure. There's certain things I can't use in Facebook advertising. I can't say, or they'll shut down my account. We actually had our YouTube account shut down recently and they still haven't told us why. I still don't know what it is that I did.
Did they take all your assets too?
They took everything down. They took they took all of my subscribers. They took all of our content. They took they took my entire Gmail account out. So my Google Docs, all of that is gone. They just said we violated a third party copyright and nothing. I've messaged them and they just said you violated. I'm like, but how? Why? We've had this account for 10 years and there's nobody to call. There's nobody to talk. So again, you could just get taken down for no reason. We've had many friends who have had Facebook accounts to shut down with no reason. So that's
devastating.
This conglomerate big marketing piece where they could just shut you down for whatever they decided their policy was today. It's frightening. So you also have to recognize, where are my assets? I can't rely on a major conglomerate for the marketing, right? So we also look at everything to say, what do we own? Where do we own it? Make sure we have backup copies of everything. And not rely so heavily on one form of marketing that if it went goodbye tomorrow, which we've seen it happen very recently, that you're not devastated by that.
Yeah.
So just like finances, we are very diverse in making sure we have paid ads, we have our email lists, we have our SMS text lists, we have our people who send us people that we do affiliate marketing and partnerships with, we do podcasting, things like this, that you can't rely on one thing or else you could be literally out of business tomorrow.
Absolutely. You don't want to keep all your eggs in one basket.
That's the thing that has changed the most dramatically. I think in the last 25 years, I've seen
painful learning lessons.
Yes, and how fun those learning lessons are. You couldn't have possibly learned that any other way. But that's the trend that we're seeing, especially in health. But on TikTok, you can say whatever the hell you want and get away with all sorts of things that would be horrible blasphemy to say on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram.
Isn't that so interesting?
Playing by whatever rule they decide is the policy for today and playing within their boundaries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say has been some of the biggest challenges and hurdles you've had to overcome as a business owner in today's society?
I think the cost of what used to work has tripled, quadrupled, 10x. We, back in the day in 2017, we got onto Facebook advertising before it was really, really, really popular. And we were able to spend next to nothing to get somebody to book a call with us and have a conversation. It's about 5 times more now to get people to book calls than what we used to see. The software and the amount of money to have your CRMs and customer service, customer relationship management systems, that's all going up. And things like Zoom, which is awesome because our business is basically all online, but the cost of everything, to acquire a client, to hold a client, to work with a client, to set up the systems and the content that they get access to, and that's all going up and going up. And then we're so dependent on some of that it starts to really, some days you're like, that's it. Like there are days I'll say to Anthony, I'm like, that's it. I'm just going to Mexico and I'm opening a gluten-free taco stand. I can't do this anymore. Cause there are just days you're like, are you kidding me? But the love for what we do and the amazingness of what we see when clients are in their healing space.
It's worth it.
I'm here. I'm still doing it. But I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of people. But on the flip side, I think it's a lot easier to get into business now. It's a lot easier to hang a shingle and say that you're a consultant or you're an online expert, which is awesome for people getting into the business, but it's not so awesome because it's muddying the space. And there's a lot of people out there claiming to do some stuff that they're just not good at the marketing piece and not good at the, they're really not. So that's a little disappointing. But at the same time, starting a business now is so much easier than it used to be, which is awesome.
No, I definitely want to touch on that misinformation piece for a second, because on TikTok specifically, I mean, you could have on your For You page someone say, stop eating eggs. Eggs are bad for you. And then the next person is like, oh, eating eggs is great for you, for example. And it's like, there's so many people out there that claim to be nutritionists, that claim to be, whatever form of health expert. And I feel like they're just saying things to say things, and just because they maybe heard it on someone else's video, or maybe they read it in some blog post and now it's word for them, and people are really impressionable and are sitting there doom scrolling. They're like, okay, well now I'm not going to eat eggs because this holistic healer told me not to eat eggs.
Right. Yeah. And here's what I tell people when it comes to nutrition, because there's always a study that will prove that this is wrong for you. And there's always a study that will prove the opposite. So, I mean, if you get a registered dietitian, they were trained, they're conventional medicine. They're going to be trained on the food pyramid or the food plate or whatever the hell it is now. You're always going to have conflicting advice. What we have found for the healthiest way for people to eat is to find the right diet for you based on your goals, your willingness to change, and what's going on. And if you work with a practitioner who understands those principles and doesn't have a hard line on everyone has to be vegan or everybody has to be plant-based or whatever their story is, that's who you're looking for. You're not looking for the guy who's trying to scare the pants off of you today. You're not looking for the guy who's trying to trick you into working with him because you're scared. You're working with the people who are helping you find the right answers for you based on their knowledge and their history. But if you're working with the guy who's out of the gate 10 minutes and he doesn't have the type of clients or the longevity working with clients that fit your profile, you may want to look for somebody who's more understanding of where you are in that niche. So, you can't solve all the things for all the people all of the time. Doesn't mean I can't work with somebody who's out of our range, but there's a reason we're really, really good at working with the people in our target audience because we worked with hundreds of them. But we'll have clients come to us and say, well, I did this program or this thing and they told us to do this. And I'm like, where was the basis for any of that? And they're like, it didn't seem like it made sense, but I did it anyway. That's where we want to tell people to be careful. If it doesn't align, if it doesn't make sense, if you feel in your gut, this seems like a weird, extreme way to do stuff, you may want to question that. And that's where I think some of the false information or the unhealthy information or the frankly dangerous information comes from out there. Where are they getting their stuff? And it doesn't mean they have to be certified in all of the things that we're certified in. But it does mean what's their history with this? Why are they recommending? We teach our clients why we recommend what we recommend. We teach them why. We teach them the underlying, how do you figure this out on your own? Because if somebody's just saying, drink this special Kool-Aid and it's going to fix all of your problems, no one loses weight and holds it off with some special magic diet for 3 days. Nobody ever fixes things and so it's like, listen to what makes sense. Don't go after the lose 5 dress sizes in 5 days. I could get you to lose weight on chocolate cake if I really wanted to, but is it going to help you health wise? No. So
purely aesthetic.
What's the goal, right? Exactly. So that's what I want people to start looking at when they're on Facebook. They're looking at other programs. They're looking at working with practitioners. Does it resonate with you? Does it sit right with you? Does it make sense from a logical standpoint? Does it align with your principles and your goals? And is it really going to help you long-term, or is it going to do some crazy thing for you in 2 days and that's going to actually
Band-Aid.
hurt you.
Yeah.
Detox from this and do this thing for, and I'm like, yes, detoxes can be helpful. We find most people when they're doing something extreme, it actually hurts their system. Most people aren't in a position where they could do a detox at that level and their body isn't going to have some spin out after effect. So just take a beat. That makes sense. Think about it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Kirstin, this has been such an incredible conversation. I enjoyed this deeply.
Me too. Me too.
Yes. So I would love to kind of share where people can find you, how they can sign up for your program if they're interested. Just go ahead and give that download really quick.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fastest, easiest way to get to us is nourish123.com. We always have stuff going on. We have a whole masterclass series going on right now, which is no fee that people can get involved with. They can find it on nourish123.com. We have challenges that periodically happen. We have other events. But if you're really serious about your health and you're in a position where you're done with what you're feeling right now, and you really want to put time and effort and energy into, and resources into your healing, and you want long-term effective healing across the board, then just go to nourish123.com. You can make appointments with us from there, where we'll take 20 to 30 minutes to sit down, really see where you want to go. And if it's the right fit for us to work with you, if we're going to be able to help you get where you want to go, we can talk about what that looks like. But if we can't, we don't think we're going to be able to help you get where you want to go, we'll give you some recommendations on what we think will work best for you.
Amazing. Yay. And Kirstin, what would you like to leave the audience with today?
Is it, if 5 years from now, you look back at this moment and you find your life hasn't shifted, what's that going to do for you? So what would your 5-year future self tell you to do right now about whatever is going on in your life? Whether it's your health, your fitness, your whatever it is. But if your 5-year future self tells you to make a change, you should listen to her.
Brilliant. I loved that. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I seriously loved this conversation. You are such an intelligent, bright woman.
Oh, thank you. This is a good time. This is one of the most fun podcasts I've been on. So thank you for being an amazing host, because not all hosts are created equal.
Swiggity sweet. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I just connected all the dots of my life, and now I can live my optimal, existence and unweave all my traumas and fix all my problems. But for real, I feel like I learned so much. That conversation just energized the heck out of me. And Kirstin is such a cool person. So I'm so glad that we got to sit down and do this today. If you guys feel the same way as I do about that and feel like you learned as much as I did, please like this episode, download it, subscribe, share it with your friends. Let's all have some laughs, lessons, and brand new perspectives together. I post new episodes every Thursday, as you know, so stay tuned. And see you on the flip side.